Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, and we are going to get started with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. What I'd like to do real quick here is just go through some of the great support and resistance we got yesterday with just our eye levels. So really the key thing that I want to point out about yesterday is the fact that we had an eye level at the high of the day, which happened to be right up here, right around the highs that we made just about 10 minutes after the open. So market pushed right into our eye level, broke it by maybe just a few ticks, and turned around. And then when we found a low at the end of the day, we had an eye level sitting right down here as well. Now the green line is the previous daily low. That's not the eye level that we gave our members, but we did have it down here. It came down, bounced almost to the tick off our eye level, and then came up and had this really strong push going into the end of yesterday. So again, just kind of to review here the strength of the eye levels that we give our members here in the room every morning. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that low where we did have a nice multiple time frame bullish divergence yesterday. So let's go to our ultra high time frames here and take a look at what they have to say now after that correction in the market yesterday. Our quarterly looks exactly the same, and our monthly as well, so really nothing new there. We covered the fact that we do have a new high on the candle that is still developing, but it looks like it's now starting to push down and make a lower high. So there is a little bit of a bearish divergent argument to be made off that new candle. Now coming down to the weekly here, and you can see that the low that we were comparing with to make our divergence off of the lows of the most recent weekly candles, it has now kind of followed through, broken the low. So remember back when we were up here, we were talking about we could push another 100 points lower and still potentially have that divergence. Well, we've now pushed almost 200 points lower, or maybe it's like 150 from that low. And now we have a lower low, so let me redraw this down, and there's a lower low on RVI. So this is no longer any type of valid divergence. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. And one thing that I am noticing here from a weekly perspective is the fact that we have kind of like one of these wicks going on right here on the current weekly candle. So if we go ahead and copy over this little, so just to highlight that, it does look very much like all those previous candles where we had pretty large wicks to the downside. And then you can see after that wick, we then got a few weeks there of continued bull moves. So we will have to kind of monitor this. If they just continue to sell things off, this weekly candle will come all the way back down here and kind of cover up that wick there. But for now, that's what I'm seeing. Outside of that, I don't have any strong arguments here. What some people could still argue here is if we go back to previous lows, so maybe this low here since we never broke it, and this low back here since we never broke it, and this one back here, you can see that the RVI has come down lower compared to those. But as you know, when we're on the higher time frames, I really prefer to actually look in the local area for something that's either a nice classic or hidden divergence in that local area. But there could be an argument that's still made, assuming we continue to hold above these lows as we pull back. So just keep that in mind. Not something I like to hang my hat on right now. The one thing that I would like to argue is there is that what looks to be an IRB bar right there. Going to our daily chart here. Daily chart has no indications of a bullish divergence from the lows, unless, of course, you go ahead and then go all the way back to all these previous lows and make the argument that we do have a much lower low on RVI right now, but compared to all these previous lows, we are, much higher up. So there is that argument, but Again, just to filter out any potential kind of false signals. I try to stay away from that kind of stuff. We do have the bullish divergence from there, so I do like to kind of compare from the most recent divergence there, and then you can see from here down to here, we definitely do not have any indication. So still no bullish indications down here. We do have that huge wick on the previous daily bar there. Almost 50% of the candle is that wick to the downside. So assuming they don't break the low of yesterday, that would be somewhat of a case for a potential bullish argument. Now, one thing I did add to this Fibonacci retracement here is the 75%, which is something we talked about, I believe, in our last study session. We just kind of hinted at it on one or two setups. But a lot of times what we see is the market comes down. Maybe it bounces off the 61.8 at some point. You can't see it here on the daily. There's just not enough resolution there. But what we see sometimes is it'll go and it'll break through 61, push just a little bit past that, and then bounce out of there and continue going higher. And so yesterday I threw a 75 up just to see, because it's generally like 70 to 75% is the level. I think some people use something like 73 point something percent. But just to make it easy, throwing 75, understanding that you do have a little bit of a range above that. But interesting to note that they did come down and bounce almost exactly to the tick off of 75% of that leg right there. So we'll see what happens today. Still, like I said, not necessarily any type of bullish divergence off of the current previous daily low. So kind of agreeing with this weekly here. There could be some type of argument made from all the way back at those previous lows, but overall, not any type of strong bullish divergence that I like to see. Going down to the 4 hour here, pretty much the same situation. We don't really have a nice clear bullish divergence off the lows there. Now if we were to kind of zoom out, go all the way back, maybe we could make arguments that the low, which was much lower back on July 19th, had a much higher RVI, so maybe you could argue there's divergence. But in this local area, definitely don't see anything that I like. And if we look at the all-time high down to the low that we made yesterday, we do have a test right now of the 38% retracement. Now, how are they going to actually hold that level and pull back? That's the question. They definitely came down about 10-15 points there in the overnight session, but that does not mean that that's it for the bulls right now. I do like the 50 to 61.8 retracement area, being that we did have a lot of strong support up there, but we'll just have to wait and see what they do here. So right now on the 4 hour, really no strong bullish signals off of the previous daily low, and currently don't see any signs of exhaustion on the current push. Just take a look at the daily for the highs. Yeah, really nothing on the highs either. So let's go down to the 60-minute. The 60-minute, there's a subsequent bar type divergence where you could argue they pushed to a lower low down to the previous daily low there, but the RVI did push a little bit higher. I know the candle did push up and close higher, but just going from that subsequent candle case, we do have a little bit of an argument there for that bullish divergence. And now off of the overnight high, definitely see a little bit of a bearish divergence right now. If you look at some of these previous highs right in this most recent push down, we never really got any kind of divergences off of these peaks here. So they're still valid to compare, and we're still seeing, arguably some bearish divergence right now off that current high. This one kind of went up just a little bit, so maybe not. But we do have that argument for a bearish divergence right now on the 60-minute. We didn't see it on the 4 hour. Couldn't see the resolution on the daily there, but we do have that going on. And then I guess there could be an argument made that if we don't break the low that we made here at 62.50, we might have another bullish divergence on the 60-minute right there. So we've got those two, and then the previous daily low, you could argue there's a little bit of a bullish divergence. So let's see what the intermediate time frames have to say, and we'll kind of try to put this all together and have a cohesive argument for this morning. So 30-minute here, and 30-minute doesn't necessarily have any type of bearish divergence off the overnight high. So no agreement. So remember, we do this because some mornings we do have 4 or 5 time frames all giving the same picture, which then gives us a pretty good argument for direction. This morning, not quite getting that. We do have the bullish divergence off the previous daily low, so we're getting some agreement down there. But off the overnight high, we don't have any type of bearish agreement right now. Now I'm seeing that we do have that bullish divergence off the current low, which again, if we can stay above 62, it's 62.75, not 62.50. If we can stay above 62.75, we've still got that bullish divergence going on. And so we'll have to watch that in the next few minutes here, assuming it does continue to pull back, if they end up holding that. If they don't hold 62.75, that potential little bullish thing we see on the 60-minute and the 30-minute will be erased. And I probably shouldn't even mark that because it's not closed yet, but we'll go ahead, and it's already drawn with the DA, so we'll leave that. So that's that on the 30-minute. I don't think there's anything else to really be said. We could look at this smaller leg, which I think we already did on one of the other time frames, but let me see here. Just this smaller little section of the market chopped around for quite a while and eventually sold off and got the bounce. So there's arguably a decent leg right here, still finding resistance right around 50. Remember, from the larger leg all the way at the all-time high down, we're hanging out right around the 38. So we've got kind of a confluence of fibs right in that area, and that's exactly where we're getting the pullback. Again, we don't have enough bearish signals off of this current overnight high to tell me that we're high enough for some type of major pullback. So potentially could follow through for higher there. 10-minute has the agreement off the previous daily low, so that is kind of showing us. And if we go down to the short time frames and look at the 1 minute, the 3 minute, stuff like that, we also see the bullish signal down here. So essentially, from our tick chart all the way up to the 60-minute chart, we got a bullish divergence yesterday. Remember, this low that we talked about at 93.25 was just a few ticks from where we had our eye level yesterday, and that's exactly where the market made its low. So bounced out of the eye level and made that multiple time frame bullish signal on the 60-minute all the way down to the tick chart. Got this push up. And there is actually a nice 10-minute bearish divergence off the overnight high. So a few time frames, or 1 or 2 time frames, have that bear signal right now. So not compelling enough to indicate some type of major, sell-off or continuation lower in the direction of the current, situation right now. But it is there. So let's just kind of quickly go through everything again. We're starting to see what could be a bearish indication on these higher time frames off the all-time high. On the weekly, we didn't see it. And then on the daily, we got it all the way back on September 3rd. And, here we are 200 points lower now. Now, we don't have a strong enough bullish signal off the previous daily low when we look at our high time frames. So looking at our daily, looking at our 4-hour, we don't see a strong argument. But then from the 60-minute down, we do have a bullish case. As far as bearish cases off of the highs, we don't have enough cases. Well, all we have is the 60-minute and the 10-minute giving a bearish signal. So what that tells me is we have a little bit more of a bullish case off the previous daily low than we do have a bearish case off the overnight high, telling me we could potentially push a little bit higher here. But remember, we don't have the high time frame bullish signals. So without those high time frames, I'm skeptical of it being a huge reversal off that level. Now we did have a pretty strong push. So there was a really strong reaction from 93 here. But you know, I don't have enough daily or 4-hour signals to tell me that this is where we're going to actually reverse and push up to retrace the whole leg down from the all-time high. So I think we could potentially find maybe a little bit more of a bounce somewhere in between here to push up and maybe test into that 44.24 or a little bit higher. And then maybe if we do then get a nice clear bearish divergence up top here with every time frame agreeing, we can then reevaluate and expect some type of continued correction lower. So that's kind of where we are this morning. Not necessarily a great confluence with every time frame, making it a little harder for a compelling case for a certain direction. We will have to watch the overall retracements here this morning and just keep in mind that there is potential for them to push up right into the 50 to 61.8 retracement area of the whole push down, right where we found support earlier. And then if we do have the confluence of time frames, that could be where we potentially continue with this sell-off here. So that's where we'll leave it this morning. Remember, anything's possible. We do have 2 time frames showing the bearish case right now off the overnight high. And assuming there's some type of very strong bearish kind of follow through this morning, it very well could just never come back up and just start selling off and breaking that low that we made here yesterday and continuing to go lower. If we do look at the 27% extension of this whole leg down from the all-time high to the low that we just made, that would bring us down, extend us down into 42.27. Just see if there's anything interesting down there from a price action perspective. I guess we do have some decent resistance in the market right around there, but we do have this big guy sticking out right at 42.48 there. So we'll just have to see this morning. Not enough of a clear case, but it is what it is.